Hello everyone, this is John again with Primal Audi Denver, back again with some more race footage, this time from the Superior Morgul road race in Superior, Colorado. The defining characteristic of this race was the almost directly crosswinds that we had the entire race. We'll talk more about those throughout the whole video. But this was a pretty big field, I think over 60 guys again. Some big teams, the Above Cancer team, Rio Grande, and Cinch, all domestic elite teams, had pretty big squads out. And then some individual guys like from the Spillway team, from Elevate as well, and from Wildlife. So pretty strong field. The course was rolling hills. It racked up a pretty good amount of elevation by the end, but none of the hills were longer than like 2 or 3 minutes. But it's on this super exposed section of land up against the foothills that you see in the background that we're heading towards. And I think the forecast said like almost 20-mile-an-hour sustained winds. And the first couple laps, they weren't crazy, but by the end of the race, it was terrifying in some sections, especially while descending. So it's just an out and back course. You can see on the bottom right. Each loop is an out and back, so we did the loop 7 times. So there's not really any corners, just the turns. And this is the first climb we're coming onto. The wind is coming from our left side here. I ended up on the left side because everybody was getting pretty crowded on the right side, and I thought it was more important to try and move up than it was to try and save energy, because I figured the field was about to start blowing up here since this was the first proper climb. And you can see it's kind of bunching up, and I think I try to get out to the left a little bit to move up a little more, but this is a pretty big effort for me here already, so I don't know how much faster I can go up this hill. But this hill really strung everything out. I guess another thing with the crosswind is the draft doesn't matter quite as much when you're going really slow in these uphills. It's once you get going on the faster sections that it's much more important to save energy. So another thing about the crosswinds is you gotta think about where your draft is going. So when the wind's coming off the left here, the draft you're creating for the riders behind you is back and to the right. So you can see the field is kind of bunched up on the right side of the road, and that's because everybody wants to get on the right side of the rider in front of them to get a better draft. So if you're, for example, attacking the field, if you attack and go on the far right side of the road, then there's no room for anybody to draft off you. But opposite of that, if you're trying to be cooperative, then it would be a good idea for you to stay on the left side of the road so that there's room for other riders to sit in your draft. So it's important where you're riding on the road. So we're just coming up towards the crest of this hill, and the field gets strung out like almost single file here. So everyone's like trying to jump on wheels pretty frantically. And there's gaps that are like kind of starting to open everywhere as well. Like when you look up the field, there's just guys like pulling the plug out on the left. And the race is definitely starting to get pretty lit up here. The field is all the way over on the right side of the road, like we see here, because if you remember, the wind's coming off the left-hand side, so everybody wants to get on the right-hand side of the rider in front of them, and eventually you run out of road to do that with, and so then everybody ends up riding single file down the downwind side of the road, and nobody's getting as good of a draft as they could be. So if like multiple echelons had formed, that would have been more beneficial to all the riders, because then everybody could have gotten a good draft, but instead it's just strung out and everybody's left in the gutter. So this is the first big gap I had to come around, and was kind of thankful that I missed whatever happened there. A little crash from the cinch rider. I think it was just him that went down. But so I end up on the back of this group, having spent a lot of energy up the climb and over the top of the climb, and I'm trying so hard to just close this last little bit of gap down, but I just don't quite have it in my legs at this moment, and the group starts to go away from me. You can see some riders from behind start to come flying past too, and I'm kind of frustrated I can't stay with it. But this gives us a chance to talk about some more echelon stuff in the wind. So once I was off the back, I ended up with this group of other riders. I think there's 4 of us at this point. But we're heading back the other direction, so now the wind is coming off our right. So when the wind is coming from your right side, blowing to your left, the draft is not directly behind the rider in front of you. It's kind of slightly off the rider and slightly behind and slightly to the left. And how far behind and how far to the left depends on how strong the wind's blowing and exactly which direction it's coming from. But you can see, so the rider in the gray is on the front now, and everyone is behind and to the left. And then when you roll through for your turn, you're rolling through up to the front, so everybody can stay on your left hip here for this wind direction. And then when you're on the front, you're getting on the right side, so there's plenty of room to the left for everybody to form the echelon out. And then when you're done with your turn and you pull off, you slide back on the upwind side. And so you don't want to slide back too fast. You want to keep some power on so you can get a draft from the rider in front of you. But that's basically the rotation. We're forming this like clockwise rotating diamond here. With more people, it's the same idea. You just keep the pace line's going to be longer going back, and you'll have more time to recover between pulls. But this is just like a quickly rotating echelon. And now we'll jump ahead to one more spot later in the race. I wanted to show you the same echelon concept, but just for when the wind's coming from the opposite direction. So now we're going back out on the course, and the wind is blowing from our left side. And so you can see we have our echelon formed the opposite direction, and now we're rotating counterclockwise since the wind is coming from the opposite direction. So right now the rider in the green is on the front. Now the rider in the gray is coming through, and then I'll pop through. I think our group got a little bit bigger. We picked up a couple more guys, so you can afford to do these quicker rotations, especially once you have more people contributing. And so now the rider from behind me on the right is coming through to the front, and you see everyone just keeps cycling through in the same way. So the important thing when you have crosswinds is you don't draft directly behind the person in front of you. You want to be slightly offset to their downwind side, and you can even start to come up on their hip. So this is part of why you see a lot of crashes in crosswind races, because the best place to draft is half-wheeling the person in front of you, which is normally a very dangerous position to be. But in the crosswinds, you're trying to take advantage of that draft, so that's the best possible place to put your front wheel, even though it goes against what you might normally want to do. So we never saw the peloton again from this chase group. So we all finished off the back and ended up splitting up even more later, just from the gnarly winds that were making it almost unsafe to ride out there. But this is approaching the second turnaround on the course, so we're kind of ripping down towards that corner, still rotating through with our echelons on that counterclockwise rotation we were talking about. So that's pretty much all the footage I have to show you from this race. Make sure you subscribe if you want to see more racing videos. Next race out will be Tulsa Tough, so pretty excited for that one. And thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.